Okay. Yeah, one of the big ones are broken. Okay, Zok Tehel Gemara. Well, let me just put the gallery view. So that I can see everybody. Perfect. Okay, so we are up to.
By the way, the Rub repeated that. I forgot the first part of it. I just heard the tail end of it. The palindrome.
When did the Rav say that? When did he say it?
There was a Suda for Nechama's Lotnik's yard site last night.
Oh, so he spoke it out then.
There's three of them. I heard this word maybe a month ago. There's actually three of them. And it's all three. It's one by Keep It Up Aim. Keep just talking about it. And there's another one. I have to find the word. And it's a Chaim word.
Okay,
I forgot what the kasha was. What was the kasha that this palindrome answers?
Where do we know from the accepted idea, the concept that when you're machabed your parents, it results that your children will be machabed you?
We discussed it last night. As we say, it was the road set up by
Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says over here. So I just want to speak out that this week's broadcast is being sponsored by Shlomi Feintach Mishpachtoi Le'ilu Nishmas his Rav. Instead of me looking it up, you can tell us who that is. Rav
Reinim Ben Yaakov HaKohen Mezuzah.
The Shamash Rav and Aliyah. And also Le'ilu Nishmas the Goyin Tzara Torah. Shemariah Yosef Chaim. No, okay.
Even though
Okay. And it should be L'schus for Shlomo Rishon ben Chasya and Shimon Yehuda ben Rivka and Yaakov Shmuel ben Chana and Yisrael Moshe ben Yenta Gittel and Eliyahu Shraga Faivish ben Esther. They should all have a refuah Shlomo. Okay. Let's see the Heilige Gemara Biter. So yesterday we learned about where we know from that Eishes Achiv Shloi Haya Ba'ilamai is not Mechuyev Yibum and therefore it's Aser. And we learned it from Yachtov, and we learned from Achim, from the brothers, the Shvat and the children of Yaakov. From there we learned that it's Achiv Me'aviv and not Achiv Me'im. So now the Gemara gets into a whole new shaila. This is getting into the lumdus of Yevamos. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav. So let's point out that this is Rav that Rav Huna is quoting, which will be relevant a little bit later. Shemeris Yovam Shemesa. So let's look at the case. Ruvain died and left over an almana, and this almana fell to Yibum to Shimon. So Shimon now has Zeeka, he has some connection to Reuven's almana. So the halacha is, she dies. So now she's not around. So there's no Zeeka anymore, of course. Mutter be'ima, Shimon is allowed to marry the mother of this almana. Now the halacha is, if someone is married to a woman and that woman dies, he would not be able to marry that woman's mother. It's called chamoisai. Chamoisai is also to someone whether his wife is alive or whether his wife is no longer alive, whether it's his wife, whether he divorces her, chamoisai is permanently also. But a shemeres yovim shemesa, it's mutabi, which means that the connection between Shimon and this almana of Reuven is not as strong as her marriage, because if it was strong as a marriage, then it would be asher be'ima. So alma kasavar ein zika. You see that there's no very heavy relationship, a relationship that would be as strong as a marriage. You see clearly that there wouldn't be such a heavy relationship, because if it was like a marriage, then Shimon would have been asher. Then Shimon would have been asher in the mother of his Yaveh. Rashi says, "Ein zika, zikas yivimtoi shemesa." The connection, the relationship between this woman who died, loy alima, is not strong enough. So it exists, but it's not strong enough. Lemahava karusa le'aser imelav mishum chamoisa. It will not create a disha chamoisa. We're going to see on Amar Aleph that b'chayeha, while the shemeres yovim is alive, he's not allowed to marry her mother. But it's not strong enough to maintain that Isser even after the Shemeres Yavim dies. Frek the Gemara, why did Rav have to express this halacha by picking a case of Shemeres Yavim Shemesa? Why didn't he just say, V'lei mahalacha kedivri ha'aymer ein Zeeka? There already is a machloikis that discusses Zeeka, because Zeeka manifests itself in other ways than just answering her mother. There's already a machloikis about it. So all he had to say was, ein Zeeka. What would the case of ein Zeeka be? V'lei mahalacha kedivri ha'aymer ein Zeeka is up to Rashi. The Tan beperek achayvetz, shemeres yovim, shekidish achiv es achayis. So we have Reuven, who was nifter, Rachman Litzlan, and he left over an Almon. And he has two brothers, Shimon and Levi. And what Shimon did is, rather than Shimon doing Yibum, Shimon went and made Kedushin on the wife, on the sister of the Almana. So Shimon should not have done this, but he illegally went and made Kedushin on the sister of the Almana. He can no longer do Yibum, because now it's Achos Ishtai. So Levi will have to do Yibum over here. So Shomeres Yom Shekidish Achiv Es Achoisa So Yevamos V'Tala Hayibum Ba'achiv. Shimon obviously made that Levi will have to do Yibum, because he may no longer do Yibum, because he's already married to the Almana sister. So Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir Amru, they said in the name of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir, Amrim Lazeh Shekidish Achois Yevimtoi, Shimon, who already married the sister of Reuben's Almana, we tell him, Hamtein milichnos, don't do Nisuin, don't do Bia on your wife, on this woman. You know why? Even though you made Kiddushin on her, you still have a relationship with her sister, because her sister is Zakuk Liyibam. Why do we say that? If he was already married to her sister before his husband, Reuven, died, well, then she would have never been zakuk to him. But the problem is when Reuben died, he was not married to the Almana sister. So a Zeeka was formed, and then he went and made the Kedusha. Therefore, we tell him, do not do Nisuin, don't be on this woman, on your wife. Wait till Levi does Yibum on Reuben's Almana, because then the Paka Zeeka, that'll completely discharge the Zeeka, because now Levi married her. And then there's no Zeeka anymore, so then you could have Bia and make Nisuin on your wife. The Amar Shmuel, and Shmuel said, Halacha Kerab Yehuda. Shmuel said, Halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. If Shmuel said that the Halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, notice we haven't quoted anybody who argues on Rabbi Yehuda. But the fact that Shmuel had to say Halacha Kerab Yehuda, Mechlal de Pligiela, it must be that Shmuel knew that there are people who argue on Rabbi Yehuda. Otherwise, he would have had, if it was a unanimous halacha, he would have not had to mention that the halacha is like a Yehuda. V'armi ein Zeeka la'achin chashiva lesser alei korvesel. There must be people who argue on Yehuda and hold that the Zeeka to their brothers would not answer the krivis. Meaning the mere fact that this woman is still falling to Yibum to Shimon would not prevent Shimon from marrying and living with this woman's sister. So I want to quote again. I want to highlight. It says the Zeeka is not cheshiva lesser like krivesel. So it doesn't mean there's no Zeeka at all. It means the Zeeka is not strong enough to create an isser for him to live with his wife. So Frek Gemara, why didn't Rav just say halacha kedivrei ha'emer and Zeeka? Zok to Gemara, the reason why he didn't say that is ihav amachi havamina hanimili betray. What is the case where we just discussed, where Shimon married the sister? Shimon married the sister of the woman who felt him Yibum, right? And therefore, who's going to do Yibum? His brother Levi. So there's two brothers. When there's two brothers, then there's not a superbly strong Zeeka to either one of the brothers, because it's not defined which brother is going to do Yibum. So when there's two brothers, so the Zeeka isn't 100% connecting it to one person, because one of these two brothers could do Zeeka. Maybe over there would the halacha be that you say ain't Zeeka, and therefore you allow Shimon to live with his wife even before Levi does Yibum, because it's betrayed. We'll say that the Zeeka is not so strong to him, the Zeeka will be too stronger to Levi. Abul Bachad. But in our case, where there are only two brothers, and Reuben died, and now Shimon has to do Yivam on Reuben's almana. There's a very strong Zeeka, because you know what? Shimon is the only option. So maybe the Zeeka is strong enough to answer the mother-in-law. That's why Rav wanted to express his halacha of Ein Zika in a case where there's only one brother involved. Abu Bachad maybe Yesika. Therefore, Rav had to speak out that even Bechad, even if there's only one Yavam, it's still Ein Zika, and the Chamoisai, the mother-in-law, would not be us. Frank the Gemara. So once again, Rav didn't have to make up his own case. Rav could have said, that's all he had to say. And that would have answered, that would have clarified everything. Why did he have to pick a case of a mother-in-law? So Gemara, Omar Hachi, had he said, I would have thought there's no zik even machayim, meaning that even, so what is our case again? Reuben died and his wife fell to Shimon Piyibim. You'd have thought even when this woman is still alive, when Reuben's Amon is still alive, he could still go and marry her mother. Kamash Malan la'achar misa'in mechayim loy. So Rav had to speak out very clearly that he's only allowed to marry Reuben's Almana's mother after Reuben's Almana dies. Why? If there's no Zika, if there is in fact no Zika, why Taka can't he marry this woman's mother even when she's alive? Zok the Gemara, because of a huge chiddush, Mishum the Aser Levatel Mitzvahs Yevamos. And this is a yisoidistic halacha all over Shas, and I'll share with you soon where this is relevant. I'm sorry? Well, you're not being Levatel Asay. You're doing something that will make the Asay go away. Because when you marry her mother, now she's an erva to you. So let's see Rashi. Let's see Rashi.
Rashi definitely did it.
So let's see Rashi. Also levatel mitzvahs yavam. So what does Rashi say? Also levatel mitzvahs yavam. The also levatel zok Rashi. He's like 4 lines up in the skinny lines. The not of ima mechayim. If he would marry the mother while the shemer shavim is still alive, mivatel mitzvah lagamri miyibum michalita. He would totally eliminate the entire mitzvah because now she becomes an erva to him. So this concept, he's not being mavatal the mitzvah sivo. He's doing something that's going to take it away, right? So let me ask you a question. The halacha is, in the olden days, they used to think, you think we just had a recently, in the olden days they used to think that in order for a child to survive a bris, after the bris, the child has to be bathed in warm water. That's what they used to think in the olden days. And because of that, the Gemara discusses cases where what would happen if you didn't have warm water. Are you allowed to warm up water on Shabbos for the bris? So normally what they used to do is they would warm up the water before Shabbos. So the Rishonim have a shayla. Tosfos discusses it. What happens if you prepare that water before Shabbos and it spilled out? And now your Shabbos morning, should you do the bris that will now force you al pikuach nefesh to violate Shabbos because you need that water, or better push off the bris?
Forge the metal knife on Shabbos.
But that's going according to the Shita who holds that you're allowed to prepare things on Shabbos even though you could have done it before Shabbos. But we don't pass on that. We're going according to the Shita who holds you're only allowed to prepare things if you have no choice. So now we have a situation where you try to prepare, but now you don't have the water. So should you do the bris or you should have pushed the bris off? I'm sorry? So you're saying you should do it?
Without the water?
So there's
Without the water.
no, you have to make the water. Otherwise,
No. Okay, and then you have to make the water.
very good. So that's exactly what the Machlokes Rishonim holds. What the Machlokes Rishonim is about. One man holds, you look at what's right in front of you right now, like the doctor is saying. Right now, I have a mitzvah to do a bris, so I do it. I don't think 10 steps ahead. Oh, now that I need the bris, I need the hot water, so I'm allowed to make the hot water. That's one of the Shittim Rishonim. The other Shittim Rishonim is no, you got to look at the whole sequence of events and decide what to do. And therefore, since it's going to lead to a Chil Shabbos, don't do the bris. So the shayla is when there's a mitzvah in front of you, do you only look immediately in front of you, or do you look far ahead?
They didn't have a microwave in those days. They didn't have a microwave. It took them 25, half an hour to warm up water.
Right, but that would have been enough.
But then you have to do the water before the bris.
No, look, you could bathe the water, but you could bathe it maybe a half hour later, an hour later. It doesn't mean immediately.
What would happen if you needed it?
I don't know, but that's not the Shiloh we're discussing now.
Basically, the question of separation. Because if you're doing it at the same time, okay, then you're not doing it at the same time.
Let me ask you another question. What if a Yid's in jail? This happened more recently. A Yid's in jail, and he got a 1-day pass from jail. So should he immediately go to shul so he could be Mekai in the midst of Tzil B'Tzibra Minei Shmerabba? Or maybe he should save it for Yom Kippur. He should save it for the Megillah. We had this yeah. This is a machlokes between the Chacham Tzvi and it's a machlokes of Achronim. So they all based it on the same shiloh. But so are you supposed to chap the first mitzvah you could, or think long term maybe chap the biggest mitzvah that you could?
You're talking about a week to be provided.
Correct.
I would say rather it's the potential to be provided. There's nothing there, but the potential is there.
Okay.
Not in our case, she's already a Shemeres Yovam. That's what I don't understand what you're talking about. She's a Shemeres Yovam, her husband's dead.
Okay, I want to push forward because believe it or not, we're not even on today's daf yet. We're not even on today's daf yet. So I just wanted to point that that's right. Instead of looking at the Gemara in front of me, I'm looking at the end of the daf that we got to finish. That's right. I'm thinking long term over here. Yeah, we got to get to the end of the daf. So that is one of the shilas that's discussed. So Zok the Gemara, tonight we look. Yevimtoi Shemesa. A person's Yevama died. Mutter Bachos. So the lach is, let's think of the case. Ruvain died Rechman L'Tlan without children, and he left over his almana that fell to Shimon. And now this woman died. Once this woman dies, now Shimon can marry this woman's sister. So the Gemara says, Ba'choisain, it seems like it's only a sister that he can marry, because even if he was married to the woman who was Reuben's wife and she died, you're allowed to marry her sister after a woman dies. Right? One is allowed to marry one sister after the other sister is no longer alive. Mashma, the ima, which is in a marriage, it would always be usher, it would be usher. So b'choisin be malay. So you seem to have a raya against Rav that even though this woman died, still it would be usher to marry her mother-in-law. Oh, Marty, thank you very, very much. I need it more today than ever. Zakum, don't read into it and don't be medayik that. Who adin that filu be'ima. Even the mother you could marry after the Yevama dies. So why didn't the bride say a bigger chiddush that not only can you marry the sister after the Yevama dies, you could even marry the mother, which if it was a marriage you wouldn't be able to. But the ID the Tana Reisha, Ishta Shemesa, Mutter Ba'choisa in, Aval Be'ima Loi, to have a Isur Dairaisa, the Reisha, this Brisa, is not talking about a Yevama, it's talking about a wife. And in the case of a wife, after your wife dies, one is allowed to marry the wife's sister. But after a wife dies, one is never allowed to marry the wife's mother. So since when it was talking about a wife, it was talking about the sister of the wife as mutter. So in the case of Yevama, the Brisa took a parallel case. But Avada by Yevama, after the Yevama died, it would be mutter to marry her mother as well. Rabbi Yehuda argues, and he says, Shemeres Yavam Shemesa Osabi. Why? Almakasavar Yesika. He holds that relationship creates a permanent bond, and even if she dies, we say that her mother is Osir to the Yavam al Chamoisai, because he was his mother-in-law based on that relationship of Zeeka. So the Zeeka is a stronger bond that creates an Isser Chamoisai. It's not Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. It's correct. It's Rabbi Yehuda. Very good. The Gemara is going to know who is Rabbi Yehuda quoting from. And the Gemara is going to say it clearly can't be quoting from Rav, because Rav says Ein Zika, right? So Zok the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Mishmesh Mishmesh also be Alma Kasav Yeshika. Right, the Gemara exactly the opposite. V'lei Malacha Kedivri Aimer Yeshika. So the Gemara answered the same thing as we said before. You have a Amar Hachi, have Amina, Hanamili Bechat. That's only You only say Yesh Zeeka if there's only one Yavam around. Aval Botrei, when there's two around, then I would think Ein Zeeka. Right, Gemara, you can't say that here. Because the machalokes that we quoted, that he would have been referring to, had he said Yesh Zeeka, was a case when there were three brothers. That was the whole case, where Reuben died, and Shimon married the sister of Reuben's almana. So now the Yibam fell to Levi. So that is the case they're arguing about. So you can't say that if he would have just said Ein Zeeka, if Rabbi Yehuda would have just said Ein Zeeka, I would think it's Ein Zeeka. I'm sorry, Yesh Zeeka. If Rabbi Yehuda said Yesh Zeeka, I would say it's only Yesh Zeeka by Chad, but not by Trey. Because if he said Yesh Zeeka, it's referring to the case of two brothers. Ella, Omar Hachi, had he just said the words Yesh Zeeka, Havamina Machayim, I would have thought that there's only Zeeka Machayim. Meaning, while the Shemeres Yavim, while this woman is alive, he's not allowed to marry her mother. Aval Achar Mitzah, once she passes away, maybe Paka La Zika, and he would be able to marry her mother. Kamash Malon, the Zika Bechti Loy Paka. This is also a very key comment. Zika doesn't go away by itself. There either has to be a Chalita that discharges it, or there has to be a Yibum that discharges it. So let's try to bring a raya to Rabbi Yehuda. And again, this is exactly the same brisa that we asked the Kasha on Rav a moment ago, so it's going to be the same Gemara again. Zok the Gemara, who did not fiddle be'ima, but I did tana ratio ishto shemesa muter b'choisa dafka b'choisa from the imaloi davili surday raisa hanami seifa muter b'choisa. So this is an exact repeat of the Gemara we learned just a moment ago. So now we're going to add a new level of complication to this shaila. So now we've discussed Zika. Now we're going to add another component. Masav Rav Huna bar Chia. Rav Huna bar Chia asked the following question: Asa b'maimer. We know that the right way to deal with a Yevama is either to make Yibam or Chalitza. Maimer is someone who made Kedushin on a woman who fell to Yibam. The Torah doesn't talk about that. So this is not really one of the proper tracks, one of the proper methods of dealing with her. But he did it. So also by Maimer Umes. So what happens? Once again, we have three brothers, Reuben, Shimon, and Levi. Rechman Letzlon, Reuben passes away without any children. And Shimon makes Maimer on Reuben's almana. Umes, and now he died. So now the question here is this still Reuben's almana, or is it now Shimon's almana? Because the Maimer doesn't really make a full kinyan. So that is our question over here. So the Allah is Shnia, the second brother, which means Levi, Chayletes, Veloy Misyavens. He could do Chalitza, but he can't do Yibam. So let's analyze this. What caused this complication? The fact that he made Maimer. Timer the Abed Maimer. The whole problem is that Shimon did something improper and he made Maimer. Haloy Abed Maimer. Had he not done Maimer, what would Allah have been? We would have said Shnia Nami Yevumin Meyadma. If Shimon dies, right, then Levi can make Yibam. So you have a typical case where Reuben Rachman was nifter without children. His wife fell to Yibam to Shimon and Levi, and then Shimon died. So now she's only following the Levi. A simple case. And Levi should be able to make Yibam. However, if you hold like Rabbi Yehuda, the Zeeka, well then Havalat Saras Ashes Achiv Shaloi Haya Ba'ilamai Zeeka.
All brothers. They all have the Zeeka.
Okay, very good point. So let's see how Rashi explains this. And I missed out one piece of the puzzle over here. So let's see Rashi. Yevum Eloi Miyadma, Dahavet Saras Erva Bezika. She's a Saras Erva Bezika. Shekishenafla Lefnei Achav Koida Moisai Benizke Kaloi, when she fell to Shimon before Shimon died, and her Zika was to Shimon, Nasis Sarah Leishtoi. I'm sorry?
Shimon had another wife.
Right. Our Mishnah says that's right.
That's what who the Shnia is.
When the Almana fell to Shimon before Shimon died, the Niska Kalai, and she became Zakaktim, Nasis Sarah Leishtoi Bizika. Now she becomes a Tzara to his wife Bizika, Bava Hashta, which means that Shimon had a second wife. This almana of Reuben is now the tzara of Shimon's second wife. V'avahashta hach nochris ligabei. Now this nochris ligabei Levi, Shimon's second wife, Shimon's wife who didn't come from Reuben, ligabei is the tzara se'erva this Zeeka shahoisa la'achin ba. So we're talking about yes, the same Zeeka to him is to him, right? But like Shlomi pointed out, that we're referring to our Mishnah, and our Mishnah is speaking about a case of Eishes Achiv Shloi Haya Ba'ilamai. So let's have a look. Let's look at the case. Let's look at the case of Osa B'Maimer. It says over here, Osa B'Maimer Umeis. So what was the case over here? We had a case where Reuven died and he only had one brother at the time, and that was Shimon. And Shimon was zakuk to these two women. Sorry, to this one woman. He had his own wife, and Shimon did mimer, right? And only afterwards was the brother born. Only afterwards was Levi born. So Reuven had a wife and died. After he died, Levi was born. Okay, which means the Levi has no Zeeka whatsoever to Reuven's almana because he's Eishes Achav Shloi Ba'Lamai. Shimon didn't make Yibam. Shimon made mimer, and then Shimon also had a second wife. So now he's sort of married to two women. So then, Levi cannot do Yibam on any one of Shimon's wives, even though the other wife, the second wife, would have been mutter to him. But since she's the tzara of the woman who was originally Reuben's wife, that's why there will be no Yibam. So let's see the Gemara again. Hashma. So Shimon did mimer on Reuven's almana because Levi was usher to marry Reuven's almana, umeis, and then Shimon died. Shnia, Shimon's other wife, who otherwise Levi could have done Yibam on, she may also not do Yibam. Timer the Abed b'Maimer. The only reason why we say that Yibam cannot happen over here is because Shimon did mimer on Reuven's almana. If Reuven had not done mimer, so then we would say there's no connection at all, and then we would say Shnia Nami Yibuma Miyabma, because we would say that it's as if Shimon was never married to Reuven's almana. Shimon only has one wife, and if Shimon only has one wife, that's mutter to Levi under Yibam. Levi could do Yibam. But the Amid J Zeeka, if you hold the Zeeka, even if Shimon didn't do mimer, there's still a connection. He's still somewhat quasi-married. He has this relationship of Zeeka. At the time after Reuben died, even though Shimon had not yet done Yibam yet, but there was a relationship of Zeeka between Shimon and the almana of Reuben, which means that Shimon's wife, who he was married to, is the tzara of this woman. If the Zeeka creates a quasi-marriage relationship.
I'm going to say the relationship of Zeeka is Shimon.
If Shimon has a shtickle marriage relationship with this almana, so then by definition, his other wife is a tzara. In other words, try his wife is all jealous that you're taking another wife. Try explaining to his wife with alumnus that it's not a problem. It's not going to go over too well.
Yes, what exactly is mamer and what does it do?
Mamer is kedusha. Someone goes over to a woman who you're supposed to yibam on and says, "Harayat mukudeshes liba tabasu kedash Moshe v'Yisrael," because he's an idiot. It's something that he shouldn't have done. He did something wrong. That's going to be a whole different child. The Gemara has a machlokes if mimer works balkarcha. That's a different child. But I'll call upon him. Mimer is not one of the Torah didn't tell you to do mimer. Torah says do yibam or chalitza. And this guy decided to do his own thing called mimer. Mimer is only a problem with Rabban. Mimer messes us up a lot. As a matter of fact, Yevamos would be much shorter if it wasn't for mimer.
Why? Oh.
What?
Doesn't it stem from? Right. No, instituted mimer when you were a college Pavia. You just forgot you Yevamos. Isn't that what mimer comes from?
Mimer, no, the definition of mimer is making kedushin on a woman who's a yof, who's a shemer yof.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it's the idea that the Chum said you can't just.
No, that's kedusha kesef. That's kedusha kesef. Mimer is a word that's used only by Yibam.
You don't have to say anything.
No, mimer is a word that we use. Why it's called mimer, I don't know, but mimer is only in the case of Yom.
Basically is I look at it as a potential.
I'm not sure. It's a relationship that creates this. It breaks it.
Lisa, in fact, established the Zeeka bond.
No, it breaks it. So before we theorize, let's learn the whole sugya, see what happens, and then we could reverse engineer. You don't do Zeeka. No one does Zeeka. Zeeka happens, right? Yibum. Or Chalitza.
The Zeeka bond is not established until one of the brothers.
I disagree with that. I don't want to. We're in the middle of a complicated Gemara. I want to hold that until later so we can get through this again. The Zok the Gemara about it. Omer Rabba. Who adin? So Rabba says it's not a kasha because the afagav the loy avadon mimer. Even if Shimon never did mimer on the alman of Ruvain, nevertheless shnia would be mechlet cholta yivum lo miyavma. The Zeeka alone would create that you do chalitza and not yibum. It says dafka v'had katani mimer. Why does it say mimer? Even without mimer, we should say because of the Zeeka Levi could only do chalitza, not yibum. So Gemara lafukim be'shamai the amri mimer koine kinyan gomer. Be'shamai holds that when you make mimer, it actually creates a full marriage and it's considered his wife completely. So according to Be'shamai, if someone makes mimer on the Yevamos, so when Shimon made mimer on the almon of Ruvain, now it's mamish a wife. If it's mamish a wife, then at least according to Reb Shimon, it would have been mutter and ganzen, because now she's only following machmas Shimon. She's not following machmas Ruvain anymore because she's considered completely a knusa. So lafukim b'shamai the amar mimer kain kinyan gomer kamash malon. That she's considered. It's as if Shimon made yibum. It's as if Shimon made yibum.
Does he say Kedas Moshe Yisrael when he does?
He probably does. But I want to put. I misspoke. I said like Reb Shimon, he would be able to do yibum. So Rashi is exactly the opposite. V'tehavet saras erva v'tipater afana chalitza. Never mind Reb Shimon. This woman to Levi is an Ashes Achav Shaloi Hoya by Lamai. She will always be ushered. If Reuven made mimer, it's as if Reuven made yibum. If Shimon made mimer, it's as if Shimon made yibum. If Shimon made yibum, then Levi cannot marry either one of these two anymore because she remains, Reuven's almana remains ushered him forever. And being that now she's married to Shimon, Shimon's other wife will also remain ushered to Levi because of Torah Serva, precisely because of Torah Serva. She wouldn't even require chalitza. Kamash Malon that we don't pass like Beishamai, and she does require a chalitza because the mimer does not make her considered kiknus.
If he would have done you,
then Levi wouldn't even need to do chalitza on either of his women. Correct. Although according to Beishamai, it's kinyan gomer, so I'm not sure that works. So Dave's only wanted to know if you have to take it Dash Moshe Yisrael. It's a regular kedushin. I assume you do. So David's asking if you're not supposed to do it. So then, by definition, it's not kedas moshe Yisrael.
Right. Not only that,
do that,
they should be able to
so
be
I guess he doesn't say
mavatal.
kedas moshe Yisrael.
To get two Adam, one that's called Moshe, one that's called Yisrael.
No, well, my question is, the Rabbanan could be mavatal that mimer.
They technically could be mevatel mimer by being mafker the kesef kedushin. Okay, so that's a whole new level. Why they didn't do that? Maybe because it would have canceled out half of Masechet Yevamos, and all these authors would have went out of business.
So that would make it a little easier on us.
Kamash Milan. Okay.
Well, the reality is that the mimer is really a subset of kedushin, being able to be kind of a woman.
In economic.
It's not something extraordinary that he did. He didn't just take her to Canada's wonderland.
Everybody else.
So he did something that's a subset of a kinyan, a mimer.
Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. Esvei Abaye, Shnei Achin ba'olam echad. There were two brothers that were both living at the same time, meaning one is a candidate to do Yibam for the other one's Alman. Shnei Achin ba'olam echad. Umeis echad mehen beloy vlad. Rachman l'tzlan, one brother died without children. The Omer Hasheni Yasa, and the surviving brother came, Lasois Maimer b'Yevimta. He wanted to do Maimer, but thank God, v'lo hisbit Lasos b'Maimer, he didn't do Maimer until Achenoided Lo'ach. So now Levi was born. So Shimon was about to do Yibam. Shimon was about to do Maimer on Reuben's Almana, and before he had a chance to do Maimer, Levi was born. Umeis, and now Shimon dies. So basically, all we have is Zeeka. We don't have Maimer. No, he didn't do Maimer. But he didn't do Maimer. He didn't do Maimer yet. Right. It's a declaration of a mission. So the Lakas are Rishoina, Yoytza Misham Eishes Achav Shalahaya Bailamai. The first woman, meaning Reuben's Almana, Levi cannot do Yibam on because it's Eishes Achav Shalahaya Bailamai. Ushnia, and if Shimon was married to another woman, Levi could either do Oichei Letes or Mishebemes. Why? Because there's no connection between Reuben's Almana and Shimon's wife, Shimon's Almana. And therefore, since they were not married, since he didn't do Yibam and he didn't do Maimer, we look at it like there's no connection whatsoever, and Shimon was only married to one wife, and that wife, Levi, may do Yibam on. But if you hold the relationship of Zeeka makes it like it's a wife, well then once again, Havilah, Tzaras, Eishes, Achiv, Shloihoya Bailama Bezika. Once again, I would ask the same question: how is it that Levi can do Yibam on Shimon's wife if at one point Levi was married to his wife and he had a connection of Zeeka to Reuben's Alman? Zakta Gemara, you're right. According to Rabbi Yehuda, this wouldn't be possible. According to Amor Rabbi Yehuda, he holds there must be a Tana that holds this would not be possible. In fact, Levi would not be able to do Yibam on even Shimon's wife because the Zeeka would have answered her. But this Mishnah or this Brisa that we're quoting that does allow Yibam, Reb Meir he the Amri ein Zeeka. It's going with Reb Meir on ein Zeeka. So Reb Yehuda acknowledges that there's a machlokes tanoim if there's yesh Zeeka or ein Zeeka. That Brisa must hold ein Zeeka, but Reb Yehuda holds yesh Zeeka, and he has other tanoim that will support him, like Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir. Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir was the one who held yesh Zeeka. Right, Gemara. I'm sorry? If you hold Yosy. That's right. And that's exactly what the Bidur hold. Right, Gemara, Reb Meir, Ein Zeeka. Does Reb Meir hold of Ein Zeeka? You want to blame the sheet of Ein Zeeka on Reb Meir. Does Reb Meir hold Ein Zeeka? But then we learned, Arba Achim. If there were four brothers, so now we're building a little bit of extra complication. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. Shnai Mehem, Nesuyim Shtei Achayos. So Reuven and Shimon are married to two sisters, and Levi and Yehuda are not married to anyone in particular. Umesu hanasum hachayos. Reuven and Shimon died. So now you have two women that are zokuk to the other two brothers, and the problem is they're each usher to each other als achayos ishtay. So there's an achayos ishtay bezika over there. So the halach is harelu choltos v'loy misyabnis. You cannot do yibum on any of these women because each woman is usher to you through the Zeeka because of a chayzisha. Remember the very complicated Gemara we had on Testament base that if one of them was usher to one brother for some other reason and vice versa, then they can each marry the one that's not usher to them because you don't say that both sisters fell to them because one of the two sisters was usher to one of them anyway. Right? That was a very complicated case. But here we're not speaking about a complicated case. Both these sisters are falling to Shimon and to Levi and to Yehuda, and neither Levi nor Yehuda can marry either of them because each one is a chaysu kukasa. Right, the Gemara. And this is the safe of the Friedrich Brisa, meaning it would be the same author. If Reb Meir, if you want to say that Reb Meir holds ein Zeeka, and that's how you explain why, according to Reb Meir, he could do Yibam or Chalitza, well then, Hani Mitrei Batika Asya. These women are coming, one from Reuven's household and one from Shimon's household. Right? So Hai Liyabam Chada, but Hai Liyabam Chada. If you hold that there's no Zeeka, so then there shouldn't be an Israel b'chois ishtay. Therefore, each one should be able to do Yibam on one.
If you hold there is Zeeka,
I'm sorry? Well, Zeeka could be only their bond. Like I'm not sure how Zeeka works. Zeeka is not a full marriage, right? But I'll call upon them if you hold ain't Zeeka, there should be no problem at all. Zok to Gemara, la'olam ain't Zeeka. Really, there's no Zeeka. So if there's no Zeeka, what is the problem with these two sisters? Why can't one of them marry Levi and one of them marry Yehuda? So Gemara mishum de kasaver aser levatel mitzvah. You're not being levatel mitzvah. You're going to ask you, what's the problem? They're both having a perfect yibum. Levi's doing yibum on one, Yehuda's doing on the other. But no, there's a possibility that it'll get messed up. Let me just finish the thing. The Dilma, Adam Yabim Chad, let's say Levi does Yibam on one of the sisters, right? And before Yehuda has a chance to do Yibam, Yehuda dies. Maya Sidach. So what's going to happen? This other sister, the wife of, so Levi did Yibam on the Almana of Ruvain. The Almana of Shimon is planning to do Yibam with Yehuda, and Yehuda dies. Now the Almana of Shimon has no one to do Chalitza, nor Yibam honor. So it's also Levatel Mitzvah Yivamim. The Dilma Adam Yabam Chad, Maya Sidach, the Kabatlas Mitzvah Yivamim. However, if Levi does Chalitza on Reuben's Almana, even if Yehuda dies, Levi can go now and do either Yibam or Chalitza on Yehuda on Shimon's Almana.
He's never be able to marry his brother because maybe he's going to die until they have kids. Oh. And you're going to be about to what's his Yibam.
Well, this is more direct. You want to step it up a level. Could be. But I'll call upon them. That's what it's saying over here. We want to be careful here. Not to lose the opportunity. But what you see from here very clearly is that Chalitza is also part of your Mekayim, the mitzvah of Yivam, by doing Chalitza. Because we're saying let him do Chalitza on the first wife, let Levi do Chalitza on the Alman of Ruvain. Now he's still able to do Yivam or Chalitza on the Almana of Shimon. So you see the Chalitza is not being mevatel the mitzvah Yivam. The whole problem is this woman will not require Yivam nor Chalitza.
Yeah, but guess
so Frank Gemara, but the Ein Zika Tivatel, if you hold Ein Zika, you should also not be concerned with this thing of Ashal Levatel Mitzvah Yivam. So now the Gemara makes a new chiddush that if you hold Ein Zika, you're also going to hold Mutter Levatel Mitzvah Yivam. They're connected to each other, not logically, not in lumdis, but we're going to demonstrate that Rabbi Gamliel, who holds Ein Zika, also held that you don't have this Isser of Ashal Levatel, so therefore they should go together. So Rabbi Gamliel, Amar Ein Zika, Rabbi Gamliel also holds Ein Zika, which we're saying Rabbi Meir holds of, and Rabbi Gamliel holds Mutter Levatel Mitzvah Yivam. Ditnan, Rabbi Gamliel Amar, Im Miana, Im Loi Miana, Tamtim Achetagdo, Betetzal Alazu, Mishum HaChoshisha. His case is as follows. Reuven and Shimon were married to two sisters. But Shimon's wife is a Ketana, who could still do Miyun. And Rechman L'Tzlan, Reuven dies. So now, Reuven's Almana falls to even to Shimon. So let's think about it. If he keeps his wife, he cannot do Yibam, because it's Achois Ishtoy. But if she does Miyun, then Shimon could do Yibam. So there's one Shita who holds, tell her to force her to do Miyun. So this way, that means Shimon will get rid of his young wife, and it'll give Shimon the opportunity to do Yibam on Reuven's wife. That's what one Shita said. But Rabbi Gamliel said, no, if she wants to do Miyun, let her do Miyun. But if she doesn't do Miyun, then too bad. Let her become a Gedoyla, where then she will become his real wife. Shimon will be really married to his wife, right? And now he cannot do Yibam anymore. I'm sorry? It's a Kedushin Rabbanan. So let him, you have to wait till she becomes a Kedushin Deraisa, where she taka asers her sister to do Yibam, and then v'teitz alazum misham ha'chayisha. So you see clearly that Rabbi Gamliel is not concerned about Asal about the mitzvah Yivam. Because if he was concerned, he would say, no, force her to do Miyun. Now there's no logical lumdus reason why they're connected. But the Gemara is assuming if a guy's not makbel on the Zeeka, if a guy holds no Zeeka, so the whole Yibam thing is schwacher, you could be mevatel mitzvah Yivam. Amar lei, I don't understand. The Rabbi Gamliel Adar of Meir Karamis, you're trying to prove to me that just because Rabbi Gamliel holds of these two shitas and Rabbi Meir holds there's no Zika, so automatically he's going to hold that the mutal levatel mitzvah Yivamin mechetaisi. Eloi, that's absolutely not true. Hachi kamina, Rabbi Meir Chayish afil Rabbi Meir Chayish afil l'sveika. Reb Meir is choishes not to be mevatel mitzvahs Yevamos, even though it's a suffix. We don't know for sure that Yehuda is going to die after Levi does Yibum. My whole concern was if Yehuda dies after Levi does Yibum, so then Shimon's Almon is going to be left out. So Reb Meir's choishes that not to be mevatel mitzvahs Yevamos, even if it's only a suffix. And Mati wanted to even add a bigger suffix, never marry sisters, right? But you can believe so the Gemara thinks, is that what you're trying to say? That there's such a disparity between the two? You're trying to say Reb Meir is so makbid, he's chayish even with Zeeka, and Reb Gamliel, which is the case of Min, where we're for sure being mevatel the mitzvah of Yibum. Reb Gamliel not concerned about it. Isn't it mikata lakata? The Gemara, yeah, einechanami. Dilma mandel chayish afilu levadei chayish. Rabbi Gamliel, who's not worried about the problem of being mevatel mitzvah Yevamos, he doesn't care if it's a savak or a vade, it's not a concern. Uman the chayish, and Reb Meir, who is concerned, will be concerned afilu l'sveika chayish. So therefore, at this point, we don't have a kash anymore on Rav Yehuda, because the Bryce that it seems to say that there's ein Zeeka is going to come to Reb Meir, and Reb Meir can also hold that muter levatel mitzvah Yevamos. And I guess we have to stop here because it's already 5 to 7, so we fell behind half a daf. So let's see what happens on Shabbos. It's not going to be easy to catch up on Shabbos because Shabbos daf is also somewhat complicated. But we'll have to. You want to start before an hour before Mincha?
I'll bring more Nash. People ask last question. We'll get that.
Okay, so Mitchum Shabbos. Shabbos will still learn an hour before Mincha, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up. And if not, maybe you want to do an hour and 50 minutes? Okay, so Shabbos will learn an hour and 15 minutes before Mincha. So Shmuel will be an extra Nash that has to last longer. So we'll learn Shabbos an hour and 15 minutes before Mincha Be'ez Hashem. I'm learning after Shabbos also. What time is Motzei Shabbos these days? So yeah, I do Hamol.
Did you spotlight what I popped up on the screen there?
I'm sure. 1 second, let me stop the share.
Spotlight. I wanted to see the Gemara side by side with.
Oh, you want to go side
Side by side with it as possible.
Yeah, no problem. We could do that too. You could do that too. You want it side by side. I don't know if I could because I'm sharing when I share some. Yeah. So you want to be.
I had a chance till the vaccine. I told my mother when she took her vaccine.
I'm trying to figure out you're talking. No, I didn't either.
I got rid of that.
Got it?
We have a brother. What he says, he told his mother,